Leston Airfield, Suffolk, England, November 27, 1944, 09:15 hours. The briefing room reeks of burnt coffee and anxiety. 58 pilots occupy wooden chairs in a cold Nissen hut, their eyes fixed on a massive wall map of Germany. Red yarn traces a path from England to a circled target deep in Nazi territory. Missburg. The oil refineries there pump lifeblood into Hitler's dying war machine. Captain Leonard, Kit Carson, sits in the back row. He's 21, though he enlisted at 19. Wire-rimmed glasses perch on his nose. His face carries the soft, contemplative features of a graduate student, not a killer. While other pilots joke about poker hands and weekend passes, Carson reads a technical manual on propeller dynamics. He looks like he belongs in a university library, not a fighter cockpit. But today he'll fly Nooky Booky IV, a P-51K Mustang with a distinctive Aero Products propeller that produces a unique sound. The intelligence officer taps his pointer against the map. Gentlemen, expect heavy resistance around the Harz Mountains. JG-300 has been operating in strength. They're flying FW-190 Sternbucks, armored variants designed to destroy bombers. They won't dogfight. They want the big boys. Carson raises his hand. Weather at altitude. Clear skies, 28,000 feet, minus 40 degrees. Carson nods. He's calculating air density. Thin air means reduced lift. Less lift means you need more speed to maneuver. And if you lose your speed at altitude, you become a target. The briefing ends. Pilots file toward the flight line. Carson's wingman, Lieutenant Bobby Mills, catches up. You worried, Kit? Always worried about energy management. Mills laughs. Energy management. Most guys worry about getting shot. If you manage energy properly, Carson replies, adjusting his glasses, you won't get shot. We are about to witness a moment where a pilot's error turned into a tactical revolution. Kit Carson didn't just survive this fight. He turned the P-51 Mustang into a physics-defying trap that baffled the Luftwaffe. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from and if anyone in your family flew in the European theater. I read every story. Everyone deserves remembering. Now strap in. We're about to witness the moment a mistake became a masterpiece. 13:22 hours, 28,000 feet over the Harz Mountains. The bomber stream stretches for miles. Dozens of B-17 flying fortresses painting white contrails across the blue sky. Carson's squadron, the 357th Fighter Group, the Yoxford Boys, flies top cover. Their green-tailed Mustangs weave above the bombers, scanning for threats. Carson checks his instruments methodically. Fuel, 180 gallons. Oil pressure, 80 psi, normal. Airspeed, 280 mph. Then the radio explodes. Bandits, 12 o'clock low, multiple contacts. Below them, climbing through scattered clouds, swarms a mass of German fighters. 30, maybe 40 aircraft, ascending aggressively toward the bombers. Focke-Wulf 190s, the A8 Sternbuck variant, modeled camouflage, white spirals on nose cowlings. They look like wasps rising toward a beehive. The lead German rolls inverted and dives toward the B-17s. All flights engage. Do not let them hit the bombers. Carson pushes the stick forward. Nooky Booky IV tips into a dive. The Mustang accelerates, 300 mph, 350, 400. The altimeter unwinds, 28,000 feet, 25,000, 20,000. Carson selects a target, a FW-190 with a checkered tail, fixated on a smoking B-17. He closes to 300 yards. He adjusts the K-14 computing gun sight. The reticle dances, calculating deflection and lead. At 250 yards, he fires. 6 Browning M2 machine guns erupt, 450 rounds per second. The tracers arc forward in a glowing cone. The bullets walk across the Focke-Wulf's wing, metal peels away. The wing root explodes. The FW-190 rolls violently, trailing fire, and begins its terminal dive. First kill. But Carson makes a critical error. He's so focused on confirming the kill that he follows the German down. He bleeds altitude. He bleeds speed. When he pulls out, he's at 8,000 feet. He should be at 25,000 feet, providing top cover. His airspeed, 220 mph. Then he sees them. 3 Focke-Wulf 190s, diving on him from 8 o'clock high. They saw him chase their squadron mate. They saw him get low and slow. Now they're going to kill him. Carson's mind shifts. He's not panicking, he's calculating. Airspeed 220 mph, too slow to run. Altitude 8,000 feet, too low to dive. Enemy closing rate 450 mph, time to intercept 15 seconds. Every option leads to death. Turn, the FW-190 outturns the Mustang at low speeds. The Focke-Wulf's wide wings and powerful radial engine dominate slow-speed maneuvering. Dive away, he'll hit the ground before pulling out. Run straight, they'll catch him and shred his tail with 20 cannons. He's in the Coffin Corner, where all options equal death. The lead German closes fast. Carson sees him, a green FW-190 with yellow tactical numbers. The German is confident. The American has made a fatal mistake. But Carson isn't thinking about dying. He's thinking about lift. Lift equals coefficient of lift times air density times velocity squared times wing area, divided by 2. He doesn't have velocity, can't change air density or wing area. But he can change the coefficient of lift. Carson reaches for the flap lever. He drops 20 degrees of combat flaps. This is wrong. Every instructor, every manual, every veteran drills the same lesson. Never use flaps in combat. Flaps create drag. Drag kills speed. Slow is dead. But Carson isn't trying to turn. He's trying to climb. He shoves the throttle to the firewall. The Packard Merlin V1657 roars. Manifold pressure climbs into the red, 67 inches of mercury. War emergency power. Then Carson does something suicidal. He pulls the stick back, hard, all the way into his stomach. The nose of Nooky Booky IV rises past the horizon, past 45 degrees, until it points almost straight up. Carson is going vertical. The trap. The German pilots think the American has lost his mind. A slow airplane pulling vertical, it should stall instantly, the nose should drop, the plane should spin. They pull up to follow. They're confident. FW-190s have powerful radial engines with massive torque. They'll follow the Mustang up, watch it stall, and shoot it as it falls helplessly. But something strange happens. The Mustang doesn't stall. It keeps climbing. Carson's doing 150 mph, then 120, then 100. The Mustang hangs on its propeller, that massive aeroproducts paddle blade prop biting air like a helicopter rotor. The German planes climb behind him, but they're heavier. Their radial engines create more drag. As they slow, their controls become mushy. At 90 mph, the lead FW-190 shudders. The German pilot fights the stick. He kicks rudder to prevent a spin. His plane wallows, barely controllable. Carson's Mustang is stable. The flaps increase the coefficient of lift. The engine produces maximum thrust. The lightweight Mustang, stripped of external tanks and burning fuel, is lighter than the armored German fighter. Carson watches his rearview mirror. The lead German plane wobbles. The nose drops slightly. It's stalling. Then it falls. The FW-190 drops backward. nose still pointed skyward, but the plane falling earthward like a brick. Carson kicks left rudder. The Mustang pivots on its vertical axis, a perfect hammerhead turn. Now Carson looks down at the falling German fighter. He presses the trigger. 6.50 caliber machine guns roar. Bullets smash into the FW-190's engine and cockpit. The German plane disintegrates in midair, not an explosion, just violent breaking apart. Second kill. Carson pushes the stick forward. The Mustang's nose drops. Gravity reasserts itself. The plane accelerates downward, trading altitude for speed. But 2 more Germans remain. And they've just watched their leader die. Over Missburg, Germany, T+40 seconds. The second Focke-Wulf pilot is enraged. He's watched his flight leader die in a manner that defies everything he knows. The American should have stalled, should have fallen, should have died. Instead, his commander is dead. The German yanks his stick, rolling into a vertical dive. He's diving on Carson, who's accelerating earthward to regain speed. Carson sees him coming. Bouncing from 6 high. His airspeed climbs, 200 mph, 250, 300. But the German closes fast. Carson makes a split-second decision. He does it again. Throttle forward, still at war emergency power. The engine screams. Oil temperature climbs into the red. He pulls back on the stick. The horizon disappears. Sky fills his windscreen. Vertical again. The second German cannot believe it. The Americans using the same trick. The German follows. He's confident. He learned from his leader's mistake. This time he'll be careful. He'll shoot before the stall. But Carson climbs differently this time. He's using a high yo-yo, climbing at an angle, not straight up, converting airspeed into altitude while displacing himself in 3-dimensional space. The German tries to follow. He pulls his nose up. But the FW-190 bleeds energy faster. At 200 mph, the German's controls get mushy. The radial engine blocks airflow over the tail. The plane wallows. Carson's at 180 mph, but his controls remain crisp. The paddle blade propeller claws air. The flaps provide extra lift. He's still climbing. The German stalls first. His left wing drops. The plane snaps into an incipient spin. Carson rolls inverted at his climb's apex. He's upside down, looking up at the earth. He sees the German tumbling. He rolls upright, drops the nose and dives. He lines up the shot. The German falls in a semi-controlled spin, trying to recover. Carson doesn't give him the chance. 3-second burst. Bullets stitch the FW-190 tail to nose. The cockpit canopy shatters. The pilot bails out, parachute deploying seconds before his plane impacts. Third kill. Carson pulls out. He's breathing hard. His hands cramp from gripping the stick. His neck aches from checking 6. He scans the sky. The third German has had enough. He's seen 2 comrades die trying to follow this insane American vertically. He's not interested in being third. He rolls inverted and dives for the deck, running for home at maximum speed. Carson considers pursuit, but his fuel is low. Ammunition depleted. Engine temperature dangerously high from war emergency power. He retracts flaps, drag decreases. The Mustang accelerates. He climbs to 15,000 feet, searching for his squadron. The revelation. As Carson climbs, his mind races. He stumbled onto something profound. For 3 years, American pilots have been told the Focke-Wulf 190 is superior to the P-51 in slow-speed maneuvering. The doctrine is clear. If you encounter an FW-190 below 250 mph, don't turn, don't fight, run. Use your speed, dive away. use the Mustang's superior high-speed handling to escape. But Carson just proved that doctrine wrong. You can fight an FW-190 at low speeds. You just can't fight it horizontally. The secret is the vertical. The P-51 has 3 advantages in vertical fights. 1. Lower wing loading. The Mustang weighs less per square foot of wing. In a climb, lower wing loading means maintaining lift at slower airspeeds. 2. The paddle blade propeller. The Aeroproducts prop on the P-51K has wider blades generating more thrust at low airspeeds. It turns the Mustang into a short-field climber. 3. Cleaner aerodynamics. The FW-190's fat radial engine creates massive drag. In a climb, that drag is your enemy. The Mustang's inline engine creates a sleek profile. Carson has weaponized physics. He's turned the Mustang's supposed weakness, poor low-speed handling, into a trap, forced the German into a vertical fight, and his heavy engine and high wing loading kill him. Carson keys his radio. Blue Flight, this is Blue Leader. Rejoining at Angels 15, 3 bandits splashed. Copy Blue Leader, welcome back, we thought you bought it. Carson smiles grimly. Almost did, but I think I figured something out. The second wave. But the mission isn't over. As Carson climbs toward the bomber stream, he sees another crisis developing. 6 Messerschmitt Bf-109s attack a crippled B-17 that's fallen from formation. The fortress trails smoke from 2 engines. Defensive gunners fire, but the Germans press their attack. Carson checks his ammunition. 400 rounds remaining, maybe 15 seconds of sustained fire. He should go home. He's already an ace for the day, low on fuel, engine overheating. But that B-17 has 10 men aboard. Carson pushes the throttle forward. He dives on the Messerschmitts. This time he doesn't make the mistake of getting slow. He keeps speed up, 400 mph, using the energy advantage. He selects the trailing Bf-109. The German's so focused on the bomber he doesn't see the Mustang diving. Carson lines up the K-14 sight. The gyro spins. The reticle steadies. 2-second burst. Bullets converge on the Messerschmitt's wing root. The wing folds. The plane spins violently and breaks apart. 4th kill. The other 5 German pilots break off. They've seen the Mustang. They know they're in danger. One tries to reverse on Carson, pulling into a climbing turn to get behind him. Carson doesn't turn with him. He uses the vertical again. He pulls a modified Immelmann, half loop followed by half roll. He goes up over and comes down behind the German. The Bf-109 pilot realizes too late he's been reversed. Carson fires. The Messerschmitt's engine explodes. The plane noses over and dives into a forest. 5th kill. 5 kills, 1 mission. Carson is now an ace in a day, one of aerial combat's rarest achievements. The remaining Germans scatter. They want nothing to do with this green-tailed Mustang that defies gravity. Carson escorts the crippled B-17 for 20 miles until other fighters arrive. Then he turns for home. Crossing the English Channel, adrenaline fades. Exhaustion sets in. His hands shake on the stick. But his mind already organizes the data. Already drafts the report. Already plans the lecture he'll give other pilots. Because Kit Carson has discovered the vertical trap, a tactic that will change how American pilots fight the war. Leston Airfield, England, November 27, 1944, 15:45 hours. Nooky Booky IV touches down with barely a bump. Carson doesn't perform a victory roll, doesn't buzz the tower. He brings the Mustang in with surgical precision, 3-point landing, perfectly centered. He taxis to his hardstand and shuts down the engine. The propeller ticks as it cools. Ground crew swarms the aircraft. They see blackened gun ports, oil streaking the engine cowling. The crew chief climbs onto the wing and slides back the canopy. "Captain, you okay?" Carson removes his oxygen mask. His face is creased with red marks. He cleans his glasses with a handkerchief. "I'm fine, Sergeant." "How many, sir?" Carson thinks, mentally reviewing each engagement. 5 3 FW-190s, 2 109s. The crew chief's eyes widened. 5 Jesus Christ, 5 in one mission. "Yes." Carson climbs out. His legs are stiff. 4 hours 17 minutes in the air. He walks slowly toward the debriefing hut. The gun camera evidence. That evening, intelligence officers develop the gun camera film. They sit in darkness, watching 16 footage flicker on a white screen. They watch Carson's first kill, the checkered tail FW-190 disintegrating under .50 caliber fire. Then they watch something that makes them rewind. And watch again. The vertical fight. The footage shows Nooky Booky IV pulling into a near-vertical climb. The camera shakes from G-forces. The airspeed indicator shows the Mustang slowing to 90 mph. Then, impossibly, the Mustang pivots at the climb's apex and dives on a German fighter falling backward in a stall. The German plane comes apart under gunfire. One intelligence officer speaks. He forced them to climb with him, turned it into a stall fight. Intentionally. Has to be, he did it twice. Same tactic, both times it worked. They keep watching. The second vertical engagement. The Immelman reversal. The cold, calculated precision of an engineer turning air combat into mathematics. The senior officer makes a note. Recommend tactical instruction. Carson has developed new vertical engagement doctrine. The classroom. Next morning, every pilot in the 357th Fighter Group attends a special briefing. The room is packed. 58 pilots are wondering what this is about. Carson walks to the front carrying chalk and a notebook filled with diagrams. He doesn't tell war stories, doesn't brag about 5 kills. He teaches. "Yesterday I made a mistake," he begins. "I got low and slow chasing a bandit. 3 FW-190s bounced me. I was at 220 mph at 8,000 feet. According to the manual, I was dead." Silence. "But I'm not dead, and the 3 Germans who bounced me are. So either I got very lucky or the manual is incomplete." He turns to the chalkboard and draws a diagram. The FW-190 Sturmbach weighs 10,800 pounds fully loaded. The P-51K weighs 9,800 pounds. That's 1,000 pounds less. Another diagram, side view of both aircraft. The FW-190 has a BMW 801 radial engine. Lots of power but enormous drag, especially in a climb. The P-51 has an inline engine, clean nose, less drag. He explains wing loading, pounds per square foot of wing area. The P-51 has lower wing loading, meaning it maintains lift at slower airspeeds. Then the paddle blade propeller. The Aeroproducts prop on our aircraft has wider blades than the standard Hamilton prop. It generates more thrust at low airspeeds. Combined with the Merlin's power, it turns the P-51 into a short-field climber. He draws a graph, airspeed on x-axis, rate of climb on y-axis. At high speeds, above 300 mph, the FW-190 climbs better, but below 200 mph we climb better. If you force the German into a slow-speed vertical fight, you win. Pilots take notes. One raises his hand. "What about the manual? It says never turn with a 190 below 250 mph. Carson nods. "Correct, don't turn. Climb. If you try to outturn an FW-190 at low speed, he'll kill you. But if you get him to follow you into a vertical climb, his own weight kills him. Another pilot, what if he doesn't follow? Then you've separated. You climb, he breaks off, you live. Either way, you win. Carson explains the nose-high trap technique. If bounced at low altitude and low speed, don't turn. Drop 20 degrees of combat flaps to increase lift coefficient. Apply war emergency power. Pull into a steep climb, 60 to 80 degrees nose up. The enemy follows, thinking you'll stall. Your lower wing loading and paddle prop let you hang on the prop longer. The enemy stalls first. You perform a hammerhead turn and reverse onto him. The room erupts in questions. Carson answers each methodically, using math and physics. He's not a warrior giving a pep talk. He's a professor teaching fluid dynamics. But the pilots understand. They're seeing air combat through a new lens. The Carson Rampage. Over the next 3 months, Kit Carson becomes unstoppable. He flies mission after mission, racking up kills with cold efficiency. He shoots down Me-262 jets, the first operational jet fighters. He develops a tactic. The 262 is fast but bleeds energy in turns. Force it to turn, then use the vertical to reverse. He shoots down bombers, reconnaissance aircraft, German aces with 20, 30, 40 kills. By early 1945, Carson had 18.5 confirmed aerial victories. He becomes the top ace of the 357th Fighter Group, surpassing even Chuck Yeager and Bud Anderson, legendary pilots who flew alongside him. But Carson never becomes arrogant, never reckless. He flies every mission the same way, methodically, carefully, like an engineer solving a problem. And he never gets a scratch on his aircraft. The Carson speed. But Kit Carson's legacy extends far beyond World War II. Years after the war, aviation engineers studying Carson's flight logs discovered something remarkable. Carson had calculated the optimal airspeed for long-range cruise in the P-51 Mustang. He called it maximum range cruise speed, the airspeed providing the greatest distance per gallon of fuel consumed. Not the fastest speed, not the most fuel-efficient speed, the perfect balance between velocity and fuel economy. Modern pilots call it Carson speed. It's taught in every flight school worldwide. Pilots of Cessnas, Boeings, F-16s, they all learn the principle a 21-year-old fighter pilot figured out with a slide rule in 1944. Carson weaponized efficiency. He realized fuel management was a tactical advantage. Extend your range by flying at Carson speed and you can chase the enemy further. Stay over the target longer. Come home safely. While other pilots flew by instinct, Carson flew by calculus. Post-war, the United States, 1945–1950. Kit Carson survives the war. Unlike many aces who die in combat or peacetime accidents, Carson comes home intact. He returns to the United States and immediately begins writing. In 1950, he publishes Pursue and Destroy, the story of the 357th Fighter Group. It became the definitive manual on P-51 Mustang tactics. Fighter pilots devour it. The book doesn't focus on glory or heroism. It focuses on technique, filled with diagrams, graphs, and mathematical equations. One chapter titled, The Vertical Engagement, How to Win When You're Slow. Carson describes the November 27, 1944 engagement in clinical detail. He explains the aerodynamics of the nose-high trap, provides step-by-step instructions for executing the maneuver. He turns his mistake into a teachable moment. The book influences an entire generation. During the Korean War, American pilots flying F-86 Sabres used Carson's vertical tactics against MiG-15s. During Vietnam, pilots read Carson's book to understand energy management. Even today, modern fighter pilots study Carson's principles. Carson never becomes a celebrity. He doesn't become a test pilot like Chuck Yeager, breaking the sound barrier and appearing on magazine covers. He doesn't become a general, commanding air forces. He remains an engineer. After the war, he worked in aerospace. He designs aircraft components. He teaches aerodynamics at the college level. He lives a quiet life. But every time, a fighter pilot pulls into a vertical climb to reverse onto an enemy. Every time a pilot calculates Carson's speed to extend their range. Every time a student learns that the most dangerous weapon in the cockpit is the pilot's mind. They're using the lessons of Kit Carson. The philosophy of the engineer warrior. What made Kit Carson different? He wasn't the most aggressive pilot, wasn't the fastest, wasn't the most naturally talented. But he had something many aces lacked. He treated air combat as a science, not an art. Most fighter pilots flew by instinct. They reacted, they improvised. Carson planned, he calculated, he optimized. When he made a mistake on November 27, 1944, he didn't panic. He didn't rely on luck or raw courage. He solved the problem. He used physics. He realized that in a dogfight, you're not just fighting the enemy pilot. You're fighting gravity, drag, lift, thrust, and energy. If you understand those forces better than your opponent, you win. It doesn't matter if your opponent is brave. Doesn't matter if he's experienced. If you manipulate the physics of flight better than he can, he dies and you live. That's the Carson philosophy. And it's why he survived 100 combat missions without a scratch. Modern applications. The tactics Kit Carson developed in 1944 remain relevant today. Modern fighter aircraft, F-22 Raptors, F-35 Lightning IIs, Su-57 Felons, all use thrust vectoring and advanced aerodynamics to perform post-stall maneuvers. These are maneuvers where the aircraft operates at angles of attack that would cause normal planes to stall and spin. The famous Pugachev's Cobra maneuver, where a Russian fighter pulls its nose to 90 degrees then drops it back down, is a direct descendant of Carson's nose-high trap. The principle is the same. Use extreme angles of attack to force the enemy to overshoot, then reverse onto them. Carson figured this out in 1944 with a propeller-driven fighter and a slide rule. Russian test pilots figured it out in the 1980s with computer-controlled fly-by-wire systems. The physics haven't changed, only the tools. The final mission. Kit Carson flew his last combat mission on April 25, 1945. By then, the Luftwaffe was almost completely destroyed. The skies over Germany were empty. Carson escorted bombers to targets deep in Bavaria. No resistance. German pilots still alive had either surrendered or were hiding their aircraft. Carson landed at Leston for the last time on May 8, 1945, VE Day, victory in Europe. He climbed out of Nooky Booky IV and walked away. He never flew combat again. But his legacy was just beginning. The lesson. What do we learn from Kit Carson? We learn that intelligence is a weapon. We learn that discipline beats aggression. We learn that understanding the system you operate in, whether it's an aircraft, a business, a relationship, or a war, is more important than raw talent. Kit Carson wasn't born a fighter ace. He became one by studying, thinking, and applying scientific principles to the chaotic environment of aerial combat. He turned mistakes into lessons. He turned weakness into strength. He turned physics into victory. And on that cold November day in 1944, when he found himself low, slow, and surrounded by killers, he didn't pray for a miracle. He calculated one. He pulled back on the stick, pointed his plane at the sky, and turned gravity into a weapon. Today, the P-51 Mustang is displayed in museums worldwide. Children press their faces against glass, staring at the sleek aluminum fuselage, the bubble canopy, the propeller blades. They read plaques describing the Mustang as the plane that won the war. But the Mustang didn't win the war. Men like Kit Carson won the war. Men who looked at a machine, a collection of metal, fuel, and ammunition, and saw not just a weapon but a system. A system with rules. And if you understand the rules better than your enemy, you can bend them. Kit Carson bent the rules. He proved that slow doesn't mean dead if you're climbing. He proved that outnumbered doesn't mean defeated if you're smarter. He proved that the most dangerous thing in the sky isn't the fastest plane or the biggest gun. It's the pilot who understands aerodynamics. Carson's war was fought at 28,000 feet, in air so cold it could kill you, against enemies who wanted nothing more than to see you burn. But his weapons weren't just machine guns. They were calculus, physics, and engineering. He won because he thought so. And in the end, thinking is the ultimate weapon. This was the true story of Captain Leonard "Kit" Carson, the engineer who turned a fatal mistake into the most effective aerial tactic of World War II. If this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. We release deep-dive historical documentaries every week. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think intelligence is more important than aggression in combat, or is there a balance? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. Thanks for watching, and remember, in any fight, whether it's in the air, in business, or in life, the person who understands the system wins. We'll see you in the next one.